of the hull, and then the hull would come up like this. And what's this here?
This is the actual wood that's left along the sides of the hull.
And these holes, is it this insects eating these holes? Or
no, these are actual holes that were cut in the wood when the boat was constructed for the rope lashings that held the planks together. They were woven through here. Here's a set, here's a set, here's another one here.
Debbie, what exactly are you doing there? What are you using on that wood to keep it?
Well, after the wood is exposed, we consolidate it immediately using an acrylic resin. And this is to help hold it together, to protect it from drying out more.
And what's that along the side there?
On the side we have some yellow pigment. You can see it here, running along here.
So this would be a painted boat like you see on all those tomb reliefs?
That's right.
And what are you going to do with it now?
Well, when we finish strengthening the wood, we intend to take the pieces out one by one for more detailed study.
But there are 12 of these boats.
That's right. We're only dealing with this one now. And we thought for many years that there were only 12, but we got a surprise just a few days ago. Let me show you.
So you knew that there were 12 boats here?
That's right. And just behind you, you see boat number 12. And until just 2 days ago, I would have sworn that there were no more than 12. But then our excavations this year showed this line of brickwork coming up, and this is boat number 13.
But, I mean, there could be lots more of these. You could have hundreds of boats stretched right the way along the desert here.
It's possible, yes.
Basically, what you have here is an ancient marina complex.
We have a royal fleet moored in the desert.
Egypt's secrets are still being revealed. Not long after I left Abydos, a 14th boat was found. Together, they are the world's oldest. This royal fleet of boats, which Matthew Adams and his colleagues are trying to save, was buried near the mastaba tombs of early kings. After centuries of using the simple mastaba, burial customs had become more complex. By 2700 BC, Egypt's kings were ready to build tombs on an even greater scale.
For centuries, the mastaba had fulfilled the needs of the dead. But as the Old Kingdom flourished, Egypt reached a peak of prosperity. Now the living pharaohs required something more. Not just a tomb, but a monument to their own greatness.
Some 2,600 years before the Christian era, Egypt's pharaohs created the greatest tombs the world has known. The largest contains almost 2.5 million limestone blocks, each weighing at least 2.5 tons. Beginning in the Old Kingdom, pyramids provided a final resting place for the pharaohs for over 900 years. But these great mausoleums consumed enormous resources. The construction of even smaller pyramids strained Egypt's economy. Even when buried deep within the pyramids, the tombs of the pharaohs were not safe from the robbers who so successfully plundered their remains. Late in the Old Kingdom, Egyptian royalty began to look for other locations where their dead could rest on their long and difficult journey to immortality.
By the start of the New Kingdom, around 1570 BC, there was a change in religious observance. At the same time, it had become clear that the mastaba tombs, even the Great Pyramids, were not going to be safe from the ravages of the tomb robbers. So, Egypt's rulers began to look for a more secure site for the tombs of their great one. They chose this barren valley near Thebes. Pharaohs were carried here to begin their eternal lives in the place that is now known as the Valley of the Kings.
The remote isolation of the valley seemed to provide the necessary protection. Construction of a pharaoh's tomb here usually began soon after he succeeded to the throne. Some workers excavated great chambers in the limestone mountains. Others covered the walls with magnificent carvings and paintings. And still others inscribed the tomb with the proper texts to assure the king a successful passage into the underworld. Ancient texts reveal that when the news arrived of the king's death, final decoration and elaborate adornment were hurriedly added to the waiting tomb. After mummification, the pharaoh's body was carried up the Nile by boat. Then an entourage of many priests and mourners accompanied the mummy as its coffin was slowly dragged up the dusty valley path to a waiting tomb.
It would have taken many days of ritual and ceremony to bring the mummified body of the pharaoh from the banks of the Nile here to the entrance of the tomb. Since the day the pharaoh died, there will be frenetic activity preparing this place. Now at last, the final act of the king's life would begin. The smell of incense and the sound of chants would fill the air. Priests would lead the procession into the tomb, followed by the mourning royal family. At last, the procession reached this place, the burial chamber deep within the tomb. The mummy was lowered into its waiting sarcophagus, final ritual prayers were chanted, and the heavy lid was moved into place. The mourners returned to the land of the living, and the pharaoh was left in his new home for the afterlife.
For over 5 centuries, the New Kingdom pharaohs buried in this valley had ruled over Egypt at the peak of its grandeur and influence. But 1,000 years before the Christian era, the power of Egypt and her kings began to fade. Other, stronger cultures took Egypt's place of power in the Near East and at last occupied her territory. Persians, Hellenistic Greeks, and finally Romans controlled the land of the pharaohs. Surprisingly, none of these invaders imposed their religions. Egyptians continued to worship the old gods, and attitudes about death remained remarkably unchanged, a fact dramatically illustrated by a recent discovery.
We're in Egypt's Great Western Desert, some 200 miles west of Cairo. It's not a place for a flat tire. It's over 100 degrees out there. Driving across this place, it seems impossible to believe there's anything between here and the Libyan border except heat and lots of rock and sand. But that's not quite true. There are certain places where depressions in the desert floor make it possible to reach down and tap vast supplies of water. The result is 5 lush oases. We're driving towards one now, Bahariya, where the Egyptian archaeologist Zahi Hawass is overseeing work on an incredible discovery.
When Egypt was part of the Roman Empire, the vast oasis of Bahariya was a thriving community of 10,000 people. The oasis in the 5th century BC was famous for its dates and wine. Today, it is famous for a donkey accident.
In 1996, a workman was riding his donkey here in the Bahariya oasis. Suddenly, the animal's leg broke through the crust of the desert floor. There was a hole. He looked in it, and there were mummies, lots of them. They were the first of what may prove to be the greatest cache of mummies ever found.
Almost 4,000 years after the ritual of mummification began, these mummies look a bit different than earlier examples. Most have no coffin. Instead, their faces are covered with a papier-mâché-like mask called cartonnage. But the importance Egyptians placed on preserving the body for the afterlife was unchanged. The gilded cartonnage of these faces has given this place its name. The Valley of the Golden Mummies. Dr. Zahi Hawass of the Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities is in charge of the excavation of these tombs. He gave me a tour of the work that has been done so far.
So, Doctor, which tomb is this?
This is the latest tomb that we discovered here in the Valley of the Golden Mummies. In this tomb only, we discovered 41 mummies.
There's an amazing number of
is.
mummies here. I've never seen so many mummies.
Yeah, but what's interesting that if you look at this type of mummies here, you can see at least 3 different types of mummies. You can, if you look at the one that has a face that covered with gold, and this is the mummy that completely wrapped with linen only.
It's beautiful, isn't it, the way that's done?
Yes.
Extraordinary work.
And this mummy, what's we call covered with cartonnage. And you can see here the scenes of gods and goddesses on them. And look at this, a child. We took one child like this for X-ray. But this is, I believe, a child within the age of maybe, you can say, 2 years maximum. And
this is beautiful.
It is, you know, and it is in a very good condition. This is why I'm telling you that it is wrong that the people should say that the mummification in the Roman period was deteriorated. That's not true. It is in a very good condition. And I believe that this mummy in the middle here, that this man could be the head of the house.
Oh, that's why he's in the middle.
The head of the family. Because he's buried in the center of the room, and they put him in a kind of a high level of a stage. And this is why I believe that he's the head of the whole family.
It's very moving that a family should be buried together like
Exactly.
this. Is it the same in the other tombs?
Each mummy is different from the other mummy. And each mummy tells us a story about the people. And let us go.
Into another tomb.
Yeah.
How many of them are there that you've found so far?
We found in all the tombs until now 207 mummies.
207 mummies.
In this section here, if you look at this mummy, really, you know how they inlaid the eyes here?
Oh, that's remarkable.
Yeah, it's very beautiful, really, with the gold and the cartonnage.
Would this have been a richer person than most of them?
This is any mummy that you have gold on it means that this man was rich enough.
And this one's plaster, isn't it?
Yes, but this is, I believe, was a bride. She died before she get married.
Oh, I see.
And I believe that her family put the makeup on the lips and on these sides, and then she can get married in the afterlife.
And how many more tombs like this do you think you're going to find here?
I believe that I will spend all my life excavating, revealing secrets from the mummies, and revealing lots of stories about the life of the people here. And I said many times that at least we'll discover 10,000 mummies, and I call it the Valley of the Golden Mummies.
It is easy to think of the act of mummification as pertaining only to the great pharaohs. It is their tombs that have attracted so much effort and attention from archaeologists. But the tombs at Bahariya are filled not with royalty, but with common people. A father buried with his child resting on his chest. A woman gazing at the mummy of the man she loved. They remind us that the average citizens of ancient Egypt also sought to cheat death's corruption of the body. For most of 4,000 years, mummification was an important part of Egyptian family life.
The Egyptian family's pain at the death of a loved one was just as real as ours would be. And even while they grieved, they knew that the deceased was at that very moment struggling to survive their great journey through the underworld. Meanwhile, the family had to embark on a long series of rituals and celebrations. The body itself must be mummified to receive the spirit after death. For every family, this was a huge effort and expense. Why did they do it? This was not some morbid obsession. They did it because they cared so much. Mummification was a huge act of love.
They absolutely believed that death was not the end of life,